This is part 2 of our 2-part conversation with Marco Nijhof, and if you're just tuning in, you're in for a treat. Marco is a global authority on luxury experience design with a career that spans 5 continents and some of the world's most iconic brands, from Jumeirah and Marriott hotels to the award-winning Bicester Village shopping collection. He's held senior executives and non-executive roles, led multi-billion-dollar transformations and brought 5-star discipline to both hospitality and retail. In part 1, we explored what retail has lost and what it can reclaim from the world of 5-star hotels. And today we shift gears from insight into action. How do you rehearse emotion, build enchanted teams, and future-proof the soul of your brand? Let's rejoin the conversation. So I wanted to just drill down a little bit more. We begin to talk about multi-sensory. We've talked about queuing and perhaps that infers sort of like the layout and arrangement of things. I wanted to understand, what do you feel retailers should really be thinking about in terms of, it's a very big question, but broadly, so like laying out their stores, the pacing, the way that, fragrance, etc., helps to influence kind of connection, storytelling within environments. Are there kind of principles around this that are successful, or is it dependent upon specific circumstances at specific times?
I think it's very much dependent on the brand and what's happening, because if you look at visual merchandising, which is a skill on its own, and it's how we look at the business through 4 different pillars, which is retail, real estate, hospitality, and curation of experience. So we look at the business through 4 different aspects. When you talk about the center table, or you look at the signage, or you look at the smell, all these things play part of it. And that is also a little bit how brands can differentiate themselves when it comes to smell, or when it comes to uniforms, or when it comes to interaction. And I think it is all being too generalized at the moment. Brands don't utilize the guest experience to display, to represent what their brand is. Their brand is X. These are the core values of the brand. Okay, how can you translate that into your guest experience all the way? From even taking your coat and giving you a coat number. For instance, the restaurants do it, correct? You get the little paper. Why do you have to get the little paper? There's no need. There's a brand connection with it. It can go into the tiniest of detail. And that's where what we call unreasonable hospitality comes in, where you take the guest journey, and we've done it once. And that was, you helped us with that at that stage, where we created, how long was that paper? 30 meters or 10 meters long? Where we created, and we sat on the floor and we broke down that entire process, etc., and started to see how can we build that back and create that unique, those unique elements of experience, because it can be different everywhere.
So just bring that to life for us a bit, Marco. So at what level would you go into? So let's say there's something around, I don't know, how something is being dealt with in a changing room, for example. At what level would you get into that from a customer journey mapping point of view? It's not just, someone goes into the changing room and, they're asked how many items they're taking in, God forbid, etc. At what level do you get down into to really orchestrate this?
Ollie, fantastic question. So we are working with a company called Adoreboard that help us scrape our guest comments on trust, confidence level, or hate, or all the negatives, etc. And we didn't know, but actually in a retail store, in a retail boutique, the element of the changing room was actually one of the most important parts of the retail experience. And what was it? It was not the number of hangers, it was not the number of hooks, it wasn't the light, it wasn't the seat, it was security.
Oh.
We didn't
Wow,
know.
I wouldn't have said that. Yeah, I
I
might have
wouldn't
said
have said
mirrors
that
or
either.
something, or
But
lighting. Yeah, yeah,
to be very honest, I agree. At the end of the day, to be very honest, you
yeah,
dress to your underwear and then you're going
yeah,
to put on clothes. You do want to feel
yeah.
secure and feel
Of course.
safe.
Yeah, yeah,
If you then look at your curtains or at your
yeah.
door
Okay, I see
or
where you're
at
going.
what
Yeah,
level is accessible, what level is
yeah,
not, you actually so, oh my God, didn't look
yeah,
at it that way.
yeah, yeah,
That's going into the granularity, Ollie, of
yeah.
looking at that experience. That you will
Mm,
look at that and say, okay, well, is there a seat for the husband to sit on? Okay, that's fine. There's a husband. And will he be offered a glass of water? Yeah, he will be offered a glass of water. But the primary element is safety of that room.
mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And
mm,
that is
mm,
an element where we were shocked and we
mm.
had no idea about it. And it was because of the scraping of our
Yeah,
guest comments that we
yeah,
look at it
yeah,
intensely and see what's right and what's wrong
yeah,
and where you
yeah,
build trust or where you
yeah.
build non-confidence. And we look at that,
Yes,
we look at attractors and detractors, but you start
yeah.
looking at these in clear detail and then start countering them or enhancing them in order to create your brand differentiation.
And that thing about security, yeah, that is, you know, that's an entirely emotional articulation of what somebody wants. And you can imagine prior to that, people would have been thinking much more about physical things, light, space, hangers, mirrors, etc. And then when you start thinking of it from an emotional point of view, the things you might start adjusting to improve that experience become far broader. The way the attendant is, what they're saying, how they're behaving. They're not just sweeping the curtains open to put another garment in for you, etc. Yeah, the design of those cubicles, etc. Yeah, that all changes if you start thinking about it from how you deliver an emotion.
Well,
Very, very
actually, it's a
powerful.
nice introduction because it was Ken Hughes, who's an expert on the customer experience. I hate that word, but
Yeah,
customer experience, and he actually said,
guest experience.
guest experience is no longer about loyalty,
Right.
actually, because loyalty, I repeat, guest system, whatever it is, but it's not about
Yeah,
loyalty. It's about emotional connection to your brand. When you have an
yeah,
emotional
yeah,
connection to your brand, you become loyal. So it's moving from a loyalty based, okay, you know what, it's a good brand, it's a good store, etc., to actually say, you know what, I'm emotionally connected. I give an example, and we have a brand in Italy, and it's a male fashion brand, high end. And I
mm,
met with the store manager and he says, how are you doing? He says, we're doing great. I said, and how are you
mm,
doing? He said, well, one of the reasons is we're working very well with your apartment, which is our presidential suite that we have in our
mm.
apartments. You receive our high net worth individual guests very well, and then we take them to our store and then we do. I said, how much of your business is actually transactional business for people walking through the door? He says, 15%. I said, what? I said, 85% of our business now is based on appointments and is based on us understanding our data and having created emotional connections with our guests. I said, why did you do that? He said, do you think everybody needs a new suit 4 times a year? Or everybody needs new trousers 5 times a year? He says, they don't. But they connect with us and they come back to us because of the emotional connection we have created. And when you create that emotional connection, you can
Yeah.
actually start selling whatever you want.
You're making me feel very shallow because I sort of need suits and trousers all the time, and I realize I'm
I'll give you the brand name later on. It's a great one.
yeah,
It's a great
thank
one.
you,
So,
no, it's so true, isn't it? It's like, what you need versus what you want, and to create a desire for something, it's going to be a desire is emotional, and the more you can understand that, the more you can create that desire, the more ultimately you'll be able to
well, that's what we did as well
sell.
in value retail
Yeah,
or in the Bistro collection in terms of what we do with our villages. We're trying to create
yeah,
emotional connections. because
Yeah.
emotional connections you talk about.
Yeah.
A normal interaction you don't talk about, but people will talk about that emotional connection, about that photography. And I still remember when I started with Value Retail 10 years ago, I hired 3 doormen. And I still remember the president of the company saying, "Why are you hiring 3 doormen?" I said, "What are they going to do?" I said, "They're going to do nothing." And he looked at me and said, "What do you mean they're going to do nothing?" So no, they're not going to do nothing, but they will become the face of our village. He says, "Why?" He said, "We don't have doors." I said, "You have thousands of doors here, but you have nobody greeting." He says, "The only thing they do is tip their hat, carry a suitcase, whatever it is, or carry a bag, whatever it is, in order to create that correction." They were for 2 years the most photographed people on Instagram, which was the doorman of our villages, because people took a picture with them because they never had that chance in a retail environment to do that.
Yeah. And I'm sure everybody's seen them, but they're dressed incredibly, aren't they? They're kind of traditional red sort of bellhop kind of doorman attire. It's so Instagrammable. It's amazing. So Marco, I mean, this, 5-star hospitality, right? It doesn't happen by accident, does it? It's designed, it's rehearsed, it's delivered with absolute precision. And if you want to create these sort of unforgettable in-store experiences, we obviously need to retrain our teams to be more like a cast preparing for opening night. But if that's the case, how do you rehearse emotion?
You have to, first of all, you have to hire attitude. If you don't hire attitude, but you hire transaction, or it won't be there. It is that the emotional intelligence, the empathy, the ability to make connections with people, and the ability to be able to break the ice and don't be scared of talking to people. I think that is something that needs to be inherent with you. At the same time, you need to hire the right people in order to do that. Senior, junior level, it's the scary thing that I feel that is happening at this moment in the retail industry. The retail industry is run by financial directors at the moment, because everybody is so scared of what's happening, meaning that the decisions that are being made are made by financial people. So it is very important it's important, of course, to have the financial influence, but make sure that you have the counterbalance to that from a guest point of view, because very quickly, if you lose that part of the equation, it becomes pure transaction, it becomes price, it becomes product, etc., etc. And I think in the physical retail, that is not this element, that physical retail over time is going to become more important. And you see it as well within the retail industry. A lot of luxury stores are opening their personal shopping suites. We have presidential suites, or we call them apartments, but we have presidential suites in our apartment for the past 8 years, 9 years already. We've invested millions in the fact that we actually think, no, our high net worth individual or our private clienteling is important in order to create that emotional connection for people to come back and they feel that they have a home, they have a place where they can come, and then they go out into our stores and into our boutiques and buy. But it's that emotional connection. It is they have a sense of belonging, and when that sense of belonging, private clienteling such it's a science. It's nothing. There's not one thing that works, Ollie. There's so many aspects of it. And I go back to the original discussion. How we started was the fact, how does a hotel create a brand? With incredibly different things, the smell, the shower, the martini, the pillow, the flowers, etc. All these elements play a role. So if you would only start looking at the financial equation because of the difficult times you're in, you got to be careful that balance here from a guest experience, from an emotional point of view, is the counterbalance to that. Otherwise, you are going to lose some of your brand value, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and that suggests, doesn't it, that the sort of the leadership blueprint, if you will, needs to change, and if it becomes too lopsided on one side, you're going to start running the business in the wrong way and making decisions that are going to potentially, have unintended consequences.
I think so, and I think what has happened as well in our company when we started, we've hired. My first hire was a airport general manager, and people say, "Why do you hire an airport general?" Because I was a hotel CEO, so I knew the emotional
Yeah.
connections very well from a guest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as well, our
Yeah.
village is run with 5 million, 7 million, 8 million people. We needed that scale,
Yeah.
and how do you do it? So that
Yeah. Yeah.
combination of the transactional part with the hospitality part is a very important element. But once we've done
Yeah.
those two together, then we hired general managers of hotels, or we hired
Yeah.
assistant general managers of hotels, or food and beverage manager of hotels, because we realized that that element of guest centricity,
Yeah.
was the deciding factor of how you were changing your guest equation, that you're going to move
Yeah.
away from transaction-based business to
Yeah.
relationship and experience-based business. And you need the right
Yeah.
mindset in order to do that. And we found it at that time that was very right in the hotel segment. I think now at the moment it most probably moves to private clubs. If you see the amount of private clubs that are opening up in Paris, or that's opening up in Barcelona or Miami, you name it, it's all that, it's that individual recognition. So we think that some of that knowledge that's set possibly in
Yeah.
hotels and cruise ships
Yeah.
moved on. Cruise
Yeah.
ships, for instance, is another element where I think the interaction with your guest and how they data mine guest
Yeah.
at the moment is unbelievable.
Yeah.
They have every ship nowadays have 4 or 5 people. The only thing they do is analyze guest behavior on the ship. What happens to the guest behavior on the ship? Where do they go? Where do they eat? How can I extend that? How can I make sure that when other restaurants are full, we move them to other restaurants? Unbelievable what happens. And
looking at that in almost real time, like
in
on a
real
daily basis,
no
whilst the cruise is
in real
playing.
time.
Yeah.
In real time, because
Wow.
everybody in a cruise line gets one of those I don't know how you call these
Yeah.
armbands with these
Like the
interactive
Disney band.
armbands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
know exactly where everybody is at exactly every time. So you have that advantage that you can move people around. Therefore, your guest satisfaction goes up. When your guest satisfaction goes up, you actually your average spend goes up. There's no secret to that. So once those two
Yes.
work,
Yeah.
you become financially more successful.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about. I want to talk about team more, and we've talked about the leadership mindset that's required, and we've talked about the need to hire for attitude as the most important thing. I'm interested how when you've hired the right people, how can you really empower them to perform, to adapt, to enchant as you do in the hospitality profession? How does that? How do you empower them to do that? Enable them to do that?
That's a difficult one still. I don't think we have succeeded on that to the extent that we have. When I look at hotels and how are they successful, how can you have a hotel in Hong Kong and Dallas and London getting the same servers and getting the same attention? It's in two things, in my opinion. It's policy and procedures. You got to make sure you have the policy and procedures right. Train. And it's that element still where in retail, the difficulty is retail has a very large part of casual labor. So people who work in and out and in and out and in and out, and for $2.50 or £2.50 or £1.50, they move over to another brand in order to make £1.50 more. It's a difficult element in the retail business still. It is finding the balance between fixed staff and casual staff. And then it really is, in my opinion, train the hell out of them in order to make sure that they understand it, because it is about empowerment. But empowerment becomes very, very difficult if you only work for 6 weeks for a brand. That is a difficult situation, and it's something the industry deals with. The more luxury brands have less of a problem with that, because they do have more full-time staff, therefore can train better, coach better, counsel better. And that's why as well in the luxury brands, you'll see now that any sales agent nowadays has a database that they have to cater for and make sure that they get in contact with, so they can get them to come back to their stores in order to create connections again and actually make sales. What I think, people don't have enough hands-on knowledge anymore. And
what do you mean by that?
Sitting on a bench, talking
Yeah.
to a guest, finding out how his experience is, standing in a store or in a boutique,
Yeah.
or walking up
Yeah.
in a restaurant to somebody eating, or escorting somebody to a car and finding out how their experience was. That information from senior level to understand what happens to a real guest, I think is invaluable. And I think that doesn't happen enough. And we leave it up to the lower echelons for that to happen. And to be very honest, I'm still happy I do it. I go for 2 days into a village, and the only thing I do is visit the village. I'm not attending meetings, I'm not doing phone calls, I'm attending the village. And guess what? I come out of it with a list of 50 items, low-hanging fruits that are just easy to do.
Yeah.
And that's where, we're making billions of revenue. But that's where you actually see physical, by eating an ice cream and talking to the gentleman that's waiting for his wife, or for approaching 2 ladies, whatever it is, that you get that feedback, or meeting even with all your bell staff, or meeting with your host. The guys, what's happening? Tell me what's happening. What do you hear? That's where the real feedback comes. And of course, we have guest comments, and we have net promoter score and likelihood to return. We have lots of that data, but nothing stops you from actually meeting with real people and hearing firsthand what's happening.
I really worry that might be like a dying art in, the digitally connected, social media driven world.
Very much
that,
so.
That we're in.
Very
that,
much so.
People I fear people are more used to interacting more remotely. I mean, they're very connected. They talk a lot, but it's a dying art to, be with somebody, to accompany them, to question them, and
I think as well, a lot of people are scared to approach somebody else. And I'm sitting next to people and say, hey, good morning, sir. I work for the village, or I work for Value Retail. So I can ask you a few questions. Oh, of course. Great. 9 out of 10, actually almost 10 out of 10 will always say yes. That success ratio is so high, and people don't need to be afraid of doing that.
They just, well, they say, don't they, that it's like, 9 out of 10 times that something fails is because of a poor understanding of actually, what guests or others might call customers actually want. A poor market understanding. And if it's right there in front of you, it'd be so easy to connect to. So the cost of inaction isn't always loud. It's slow, silent attrition. When retail fails to evolve, customers don't revolt, do they? They just stop coming. And once they're gone, getting them back is harder than ever. Marco, what do you think is going to happen if we don't reimagine retail?
I think it's what's happening right now with some of the luxury brands who actually realized they priced themselves out of the market. Really? I think that realization is a very good one, because you got to recalibrate what your brand represents and where you want to position yourself. And that's a realization that I think is very, very important. Not reinventing yourself. And thank God, we work for a chairman called Scott Malcolm, who eats for breakfast change, and for lunch he eats change, and for dinner it's change again. So we are in an environment where we constantly reevaluate what we do. Any action that we do has an after-action review. Did it work? Did it not work? It's another element where I say a lot of people don't try enough. Try and fail forward. Fail forward. Stand up, fail, whatever it is, and try again. So with so many brands, you have such unique capability to create that unique brand experience. And if it doesn't work, stop it. If it works, copy and paste and keep on going. What we call copy with pride. If it works in one place, copy with pride and move on. And it's that speed. I'll give another example of where I think it happens very well, which is in Soho House in the Cotswolds, where they have this hotel. And in the beginning, they had about 5 or 6 people walking around that did nothing. The only thing they did, actually, was they connected with guests. And they found out that in their connection with guests, that the hamburger was not good. Within 24 hours, they changed the hamburger worldwide. Meaning, they knew that the hamburger wasn't good. They had a great communication system. And they basically said, if this hamburger is not good here, it must not be good anywhere. So let's change it around. That element of change and how fast you can correct. And it's that copy with pride that I say, don't try to reinvent the wheel. If somebody is reinvented, copy it with pride and move on with it. Yeah. It's that element of constant change, but trial.
So how does change is really important, and flip the world is changing so much, so the pace of change is ever accelerating. But how does, let's think of the luxury brands where so much of their story is about heritage. So how do you balance the sort of the heritage story with the need for change and at times constant reinvention? How do those things sit together? Because one is the same and the other one's different. How do you mean? Do they balance it?
So, which luxury brands is the most successful brand at the moment? Hermes.
Ooh, cripes.
Hermes. Have they changed their heritage? Have they changed what they do? No. They stuck to their brand. What are some of the luxury brands are doing? Followed fashion. Correct? Followed fashion.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
Maybe we have to go back to the heritage of the brand. It's several brands are doing that. Several brands. Why do you see at the moment the amount of creative directors? My God, it's like a windmill farm with so much wind. It's like the revolving doors. They're moving left and right, etc. People have difficulty finding what is right for the brand. But many of the brands, what they do, they go back to what they originally were in terms of quality.
They've gone off the track.
They come off the track. I think so. They are very clear brands that have followed crazy designs all of a sudden and realize, maybe we need to go step back to what we were and build on that.
So understand your lane and kind of stay in it, and then move yourself down that lane as fast as you can. But
possibly, and again, I am not a retailer, so I'm really, I am not a retailer. Don't pretend to be a retailer at all. I'm a real hotelier that has a singular focus is on the guest. But there's also one element that I think people need to look at more carefully is the changing patterns of the different generations who are changing so fast in how people are communicated with and discussed, etc. It's also where I believe artificial intelligence will play a big role. But what people are doing is replacing artificial intelligence for people. So people are being replaced by artificial intelligence. I think there's only an element of doing that so far. And you get into this, when you nowadays want to call somebody, you get into this loop. You get into the loop, you can't get out. And guess what? You can't talk to a person anymore. So you can't get out. So what do? You change brand. Thank you very much. I've enough for you. I'm changing to somebody where I can connect eventually with people. That's what I think as well as the danger of AI. And I say AI, use it to apply, but keep the human element. Because it's a human element, I still think, where you create the emotional connection and where you can create a difference. And yes, call me old school. Yeah, accept it. Old school. Fine. But it is.
We've had on the podcast in the past. We've had a lot of really great conversations about AI, and it resonates so much with what you're talking about. And it's using it in the right way. There are some levels of service where interacting with a digital colleague, I think it'd be the term we would use now, interacting with an AI can be great, and it can mean you can be served faster and your problem solved. You don't need to repeat yourself. That's fantastic. But there are times when you need a person, and when you're with a person, what AI can help that person do is tune in far faster to what you need and how to serve you, and it's using it in the right way that is so important.
And I was trying to register for a course on one of the Ivy League schools, on a digital course.
Yes,
so it was an online course, and I couldn't find the enrollment form. They forced you into a chat room. You then started chatting.
Of course.
I then put in an international number. Didn't recognize it because it only works on US numbers. Didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, loop, didn't get anywhere. So just stopped it. 3 days later, the brand calls me, "Sir, you haven't registered." I said, "No, because I couldn't find it." "Well, how can I help you?" I said, "You cannot help me. I just want to register. That's all I want to do." So it's that danger. It's the danger of being over-reliant on technology when at the end of the day, people want here I wanted a digital transaction. I couldn't even make the digital transaction happen with one of the top schools in the world.
Disastrous. So I was interested in the comment you made a moment ago. You said, "I'm not a retailer, I'm a hotelier," and you are such a hotelier. That's clear. But you wear a retailer's hat, and you work for some incredible luxury retail organizations. So is the nature of what a retailer needs to be changing as the skills that you bring into that business?
I think there is
that.
I think there's a change that needs to happen, where there needs to be more a guest-centric approach to retailing. So I think it's amazing what I found is that retailers can analyze their business like nobody else. It's unbelievable. I've never seen that. If you compare it to the hotel business, we're dinosaurs. And if you then see what retail does, it's unbelievable on the analysis that they do. That's one element. Don't forget that in physical retail, that element is huge. So it's that analysis that needs to provide you the data or the information to do this well. And that's that guest experience that needs to happen well.
So couple of extra questions. So and you can't say value retail as your answer to this, right? Because they are doing some astonishing work here in this space. But who do you think is leading the way in retail innovation? Are there any particular standout brands in your mind?
Actually, my answer to you is no.
Okay.
No. I don't think there's anybody out there that stands out and does it extremely well. Who I think does it extremely well from just an experience is Hermes. They, from a guest experience point of view, and the reaction and the connection they create with their database and how they take care, I think is exceptional.
Yeah.
It's exceptional.
Yeah.
But is there somebody that I think is at the forefront of innovation? And I spent a lot of time in the US, a lot of time in Europe.
Yeah.
No, I'm not informed enough in order to make that judgment, but I'm not impressed.
I think you have a really unique and broad perspective, and it's really interesting in itself that your view that nobody's particularly standing out. That shows there's a lot of headroom for improvement, for sure.
Well, I always call everybody that needs to go into its brand and look at low-hanging fruits. What can you improve? Because improvement is I always say, how do you become world champion? You improve a little bit, 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 and eventually you become world champion. And that's what I think it is.
Yeah.
It's small improvements.
So talking of small improvements and advice, so one question we like to ask all our guests is a reflective question. And thinking, Marco, that if you were to sit down with your younger self, and I'm imagining you now as a bellhop as you started out your career, what's the one piece of advice you would tell your younger self, if they would listen to you, about how to really succeed in their career?
I'm gonna answer saying I would do everything exactly the same way again. I am an opportunist. I'm an opportunist. I think opportunities come your way. Grab them with both hands and run with them. Run with it. You never know that. I never expected to work for retail. Never, ever in my life did I expect to work for retail. And guess what? How passionate I am about retail right now. Never expected it. So the biggest thing is take opportunities and run with it. Yeah. Now, one thing I say, never look back. Keep looking forward. Stop looking over your shoulders. Because time is our most precious asset we have, or we don't have. By looking by looking over your shoulder, you're looking in the past. So keep on looking forward. Keep looking forward. Well, what I always say, and I was attending a 4-day training course with a lot of junior staff, junior managers, etc. And I was a senior executive there for 4 days. First of all, I told the team it's a privilege for me being with these young managers because I can hear from them. And second of all, I got the best job in the world. I love what I do. I wake up every morning passionate about what I do. So just take that passion and put it forward. Keep on going. I think it's all fun. Life is fun, and it's just our life is too short. But at the end of the day, as much as you're here, live it with passion and enjoy what you do.
Marco, this has been it always is. It's such an inspiring conversation with you. You have been so honest and so generous with all you've shared. I mean, it's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Marco has reminded us that in a world chasing speed and scale, emotion is the true differentiator. And a brand that masters stage class and service won't just survive, they'll become destinations worth remembering. Thanks for listening to CXD. If today's conversation sparked a new way of thinking, share it with a colleague, drop us a review. And if you're reimagining your own retail experience, you know where you can find us. Until next time, all the best. Bye-bye.